Hey, welcome back to the 167 as we continue with What's in It for Me, and we're talking about the wonder of God. Welcome to the 167. Hey, welcome back to the 167. I am here with Pastor Rick George.
Good morning.
And Pastor Jake Reeves.
Good morning.
And I am Lucas Motley, catchphrase, your discipleship pastor. Welcome, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, so we're still in our Ecclesiastes series called What's in It for Me?
Yes, we are.
So that's the big question is what's in it for me? Not like for you guys, like me specifically. What's in it for Lucas Motley?
That's the entire episode today. Yeah. We will be looking at
just pour into me. So let's get real specific now. So today we were talking about wonder, having a sense of wonder and excitement. So tell me a little bit about, for people that need to go back and listen to our message, which you can on our website, newlifegardener.com. Go back and listen to our latest messages. Go back and review the whole series while you're at it.
Yeah.
But we were talking this week about wonder. What does a sense of wonder have to do with our faith?
Well, I think it helps us kind of stop the craziness, right? It helps us to look at things through a different lens, a different perspective. So it's so easy to just get consumed with looking at all of the things around us and overlook the hand of God in the midst of all of those things. And so when we slow down a little bit and we're intentional about looking for God activity, the hand of God, the voice of God, the movement of God, then we become more aware of God, which then leads us to reflecting upon God, which then takes us to a place of worship of God. And that's why I said that worship happens in the wonder. And again, that wasn't original to me. It was just part of our Bible study on Monday night men's group, and it was something that was brought out in the lesson that we were in that week. And I was like, that's pretty awesome that when I stop and take in the wonder of God, it produces in me this desire to worship him. Mm-hmm. Right? Otherwise, you just get consumed with worry or the fast pace of life, and you go and you do, and you forget about God sometimes.
Well, and when I think about that, visually I go to a place like a science museum where kids are running around and like they're seeing something and they go, wow, and they're getting that aha moment where they realize how, like you look at cellular structure or you look at how big the universe is, and it's that thing where you're like, oh my goodness, I realize how complex this is or how small that I am. Like, what is it for you guys that produces that wow, like that wonder moment for you? I know like sometimes it's, people go out in nature, or sometimes people, look for some information. What is it for you guys personally that inspires wonder?
And I feel like, nature's always going to do it, just because it's the other, truth-telling thing we have outside of the word that is there for us. But I feel like whenever I really start to dig into trying to understand God, I'm never encountered with this feeling of like, oh, I've got it put together now. Like I finally see, like I always walk away with a reminder of how much bigger he is than me. And it's really the thing of, I believe that if I ever spent time in fellowship with him and study of all that he is and came away with anything other than he's bigger than me and I'm going to spend my entire life and have access to the entirety of him and still not understand all the bits of him. The second I can understand him, the second I can put him in a box, I don't want to be a part of that faith anymore. Yeah. I don't want to have a God that that follows my what I think justice should be or what I think love should be, because all of my things of that stink.
Yeah. Right. So like for me, the things that those wow moments. They vary. One of them is in artistic expression, like when I watch somebody create something out of nothing, whether it's sitting and watching, the baking shows with Trudy,
yeah.
and they create these incredible cakes out of their head, the designs or whatever. It's like, wow, like how do you do that? Or, someone who can draw or paint, Bob Ross, man, that's like, whoa.
The happiest
it's
trees, man.
Yeah, those
The
happy
happiest
trees. But honestly, just watching, somebody that is an incredible artist, and it's like, that is just amazing.
Especially when they're creating what I call like ex nihilo, when they're just like if you give me a template, sure, I'll modify it, I'll
No,
do whatever.
just
And people just,
just to create. It's like, man, or music. When somebody can, play an instrument or sing, and it's just like, it's wow, that is like amazing. It causes me to then reflect on the goodness of God and how creative He is, and that He put that in people. Mm-hmm. Like it's just, it blows my mind away. So
that just made Pastor Lucas, I know your girls like to draw too, and it is probably one of my favorite things to do too, because my daughter is very much into drawing all sorts. Like she's finally at the point where she's kind of can draw people and houses and stuff, and I can tell what it is. But there's a whole story every time she does it, and I'm blown away. Even especially because she's already surpassed my ability to draw. And no, I'm kidding. I am not
I'm still drawing the sticks for the chests.
I love all forms of art, but I was not gifted in painting or any of drawing stuff like that.
Oh yeah, like Viv and Evie will they're drawing those like cutie things that they see on like YouTube.
Yeah,
and Evie's been drawing them since she was like 4 or 5, and I'm like, I can't draw that. But
so just the wonder of stepping outside and seeing, things happen, the way seasons change, like to really think about that. It's incredible.
For me, it's always those science shows, where it's like somebody showing you how like the golden ratio is in everything, or it's like, you get that, you're just like, oh my goodness. And like when you start to think about how big the universe is, and people will start to ask you like, what if we're the only life on any planet? I'm going, that wouldn't surprise me, because this is God, they're like, why would He create all these universes for us? I'm like, well, it's nothing for Him. Why wouldn't He just make it beautiful for our enjoyment?
Yeah, there's no cost to God, as far as on that, to create ex nihilo.
Yeah, to speak it into existence.
I know.
But part of just in the last couple of weeks, something that I've found myself doing because of this idea of worship happens in the wonder is I've been intentionally just looking around at things, just normal things, and trying to envision God there, like whether it be the creativeness of God or the moving of God, or some aspect of God in wherever I am and whatever I'm doing and whatever I'm seeing. The lunar eclipse that just happened. It's like, wow, like that's like to see God in that.
Yeah. He didn't have to make it pretty.
Yeah. And so some people are like, what? We had a lunar eclipse? And
That's right.
yeah. And other people are like, so what? We had a lunar eclipse. Or you could stop and say, God is incredible that happens, but it doesn't happen regularly. It happens in a cycle. And what if that cycle were thrown off? What would happen? And it's just like, whoa, like this is mind boggling.
Well, and like I said, it's that other piece where you're saying where it's like, it brings us, it's like, wow, that's good information. But then that extra step of going, wow, God is good.
Yeah.
Like, how did He even think to do that? Like how, why is that? And like I said, that I think for a lot of people, they think that worship has to be, I'm singing a song, I'm quoting scripture. And it's like, just to feel that wonder of just looking at God going, man, you're amazing. It's that same feeling I feel like where you're in love with somebody, you just go, you have those moments with your kids even where you're sitting there and you're going, I just love, like sometimes I'll put the kids to bed and they'll say something cute, and I'm just like, you just feel that sense of wonder about him. So
Yeah, and so it also so a tie-in to the New Testament from Ecclesiastes. So a little bit of a tie-in is when we now, as followers of Christ, are instructed, to laugh with those who laugh, to rejoice with the people who are rejoicing. It enables us to see good in things that we aren't necessarily a part of. We have to see outside of ourselves that, okay, well, what's in it for me? Yeah, I know you just got a raise, but what about me? See, it takes you out of that place to say, I see how God is working in your life.
Yeah.
And I can rejoice in that. Like, it's not just what's in it for me, like how am I going to benefit from this, but it's I see how God is working in your life, and I can rejoice in that. It's that wonder of God takes us outside of just our self-indulgence, how we are just so self-absorbed. Everything has to be, for me, about me, and, surrounded in me. And
well, and I think those me questions, it begs the question, which is where you took us next in your sermon. And I know that people have debated this for, 8,000 years, but I think that we can solve it in the next 10.
Okay,
All right.
let's try it.
10 minutes.
10 minutes. All right, let's try it.
But I just wrote down, say Christians are all over the place, because that's really what we ask. Every time in life, it's like, what's in it for me? And so if something doesn't go the way that we think it's supposed to go, we're trying to reconcile that idea of God gives us good gifts. All good things come down from the Father of lights, and it's like, God loves me. He's so big. He's so powerful. There's nothing that he can't do. And yet not everything goes our way. And so you were writing down, which is something that Christians talk about all the time, that God can take everything and work it for a good work, and so where are those lines? Because I think some Christians are on one side where they're like, well, that makes us invincible. And other Christians are like, well, God gave me cancer to teach me a lesson, and I'm like, where are some of those lines for you guys, and why?
Well, yeah, it comes down to the age-old debate of, does God make things happen? Does God allow things to happen? And the answer is yes. So there's your answer.
Oh, 10 minutes.
Yeah,
we, need 10
we didn't even
seconds.
need 10 minutes. It's yes. But you break that down, and it ultimately, and this is the part we don't like as people, we don't like it, that we want all the answers to make sense and to line up into our way of thinking. And somehow it feels, as people, like a cop-out if we say, well, God's ways are higher than our ways, and his thoughts are beyond our thoughts. That seems like a cop-out in some way. Like it's you don't have a good answer, so that's just your throwaway answer, when it's really not for me. Like that, it's not a throwaway answer. It is the foundation that my whole belief system is built on, that I have trust and faith in a God that I cannot fully explain or understand. Like I can't.
Right.
Parts of him I can, and I can understand and explain enough that gives me the confidence that I can trust him in the parts that I don't understand. And I know for skeptics, it seems like, well, it's just a cop-out. Well, for you, maybe it is a cop-out. But for me, it's not. It is, if I could fully understand God, why do I need God? Like if he's everything that I know and understand, then I can just do it myself, or come up with a makeshift way. But he is truly far beyond my comprehension.
It eliminates, in a sense, trust, I think, sometimes. And I think there's a balance to be had with, I know how God, like I look at the Bible and I can see God makes us certain promises, like he's true to his word, he is who he says he was, he's, is, has, and will be, that those consistent things where Jesus says, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. And yet it feels like every time that you get close to nailing it down like 100%, there's an exception to the rule. And you have to sit there and go, I don't know. But I feel like we can get close. Like I think there are some things that we can go, well, yeah, in the New Testament, this is a good way to live. Jesus, like there are certain things that we can stand on. And I think that's where we get into the cop-out thing, where it's like some people are just like, they don't even want to look at it close. They just like, well, who knows? And I'm like, no. You can get you can get close. You can find some things to stand on without throwing your hands up in the air. But in the end, if we don't approach it with humility, it's like, when people are like, I got this 100%, figured out, usually you can find one exception in the scripture where that doesn't work.
Yeah. And when I say like, it is my foundation, it's like, it is at my core. It's not a throwaway. I think about how life generally goes, and it makes sense. Mm-hmm. And when things don't go the way life generally goes and it doesn't make sense, well, how do I make sense of it? Okay. Well, I have to then go back to the Word. I have to go back to God. Sometimes it makes total sense. And then, again, sometimes it doesn't.
There's a mystery.
Yeah. And there is a mystery. And full disclosure, as a pastor, sometimes that's really frustrating. When you're sitting at a table with somebody who has experienced a tragedy, or they just got some bad news, and they've been faithful, they've done all the right things, and now this bad thing has happened, and they ask the question, so why didn't God heal my child or my parent, or why did this thing happen? And as a pastor, I want to be able to give them a rock solid answer that says, well, let's just look at it, and because of this, and here's how that worked, and here's the reason. That would be a lot easier, a lot more comforting than to say, sometimes God's ways are just like, that seems, again, I understand in the moment, it seems like, well, you don't have an answer. So you're throw it out there because you don't know. When in fact, it is true. And that's why I said in the sermon, I'm not suggesting it's easy. I'm just telling you it's true. Yeah. And if I could understand it, it would make me feel a little better, but it still wouldn't change anything.
Right.
So
what do you think, Pastor Jake? You want to jump in on this? Weigh in on this.
I tried my best there in a couple minutes. So you're
literally, I'm listening and I'm just thinking about this is one of those things that will just, it's why people have written books and books and books upon it. And I've been listening to kind of intermittently on and off to C.S. Lewis's The Problem of Pain, right?
Oh yeah, Problem of Pain.
And
great book. Go find it on Amazon.
Yeah, really, it is great. I only have
this portion of the broadcast brought to you by C.S. Lewis Books and Audible.
Please, Audible, give us money. And I don't. It's always the problem of you strip away when you look at the fall and you look at the fact that we are still in this period where we're waiting for the return of Jesus, that we are living in a broken world. And I know we've talked about it on stage, we've talked about it on this podcast about the ripples of sin and the way that these things move throughout. And I think about my own life and how if I had been genuinely protected and never I'll just say it, suffered the consequences of my own bad decisions and all of this, my depth of empathy, my ability to minister to people who are in that season, who are in that valley, would not be there. I had no idea, zero idea when I'm in there. And, when I'm a freshman in high school at a rehab clinic, because I try to take my own life, that God would use that for me to be able to look people in the eye when they're going through depression and be like, this isn't the end. Mm-hmm. You don't stop here. God is writing a way more beautiful story. And I don't know, that's, it's so much bigger than
I think we get stuck there though, is looking back. Like you said, is like, why doesn't God protect me from this? What, was there some place that he could have stepped in with? Like, and it's always like, why did I end up here? Is it my fault? Is it God's fault? Is it somebody else's fault? Is it random sin in the world? and we're not focused forward, which is what you were preaching on this
Right.
week, which is it doesn't matter why regardless of how you got there. I'm not going to say it doesn't matter. I'm going to say, like, regardless of how you got there, God has the power and the authority
Yes.
and, can work through your heart to bring you out of that. Like, he has the power to fix that and to do a good work in that. And in a sense, sometimes that takes belief and faith.
Yes.
Yeah. So where I ended the message was, how we wind up in one of 4 different places in life.
Yeah.
A barren place, a broken place, a bitter place, or a better place. Those are the 4 places that we will eventually find ourselves. And so the good news is we get to choose. Like, that's the free will, the choice. The problem is when we focus on life through conventional wisdom, and when we live life and don't experience the immediate consequences of actions, right? And we look at other people who it looks like there are no consequences to their actions. So then we stay in this conventional wisdom mindset, right? So we're over here living life and we're going down a path that's going to lead us to brokenness or bitterness or barrenness. We just don't know where that end is. And we're just looking around saying, well, look at them. They're having the time of their life. I tried this. Nothing bad happened. I'm going to keep going down that road. And then suddenly you're, bam, like, look where I wound up.
Right. You're on the wrong side of the road, but I haven't gotten hit yet, so I'm fine.
Yeah. And so it's hard, like, when you're looking through that lens and it looks like everything is going well for the people who aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. So why should I do what's right? Right. I just want to experience what they are experiencing. And if it means that I have to compromise some things or give up on a few things, so be it. What's the point? Yeah. Like, it's all good. And what the teacher is telling us is, and we're working our way towards the end of the book, right? So up to this point, it's all just been, if this is all there is no point. But we get to the end where he starts to see, like, oh, this isn't all there is, right? And so if you want to be in a broken place or a bitter place, well, just keep doing what you've been doing. And it's going to feel good for a moment, but in the end, it's not. You choose to go to that better place. In the moment, it might not feel as good. It might not make as much sense now, but it's not just about here and now. Like, you have to look at the big picture, and you have to look at it through the lens of eternity.
Right.
Okay. And eternity is from now through forever. Then it starts to make a little more sense. But that's what's difficult for us, is to look beyond the right now. And I'll talk about that a little bit next week as we get into chapter 10 and the beginning of chapter
teaser.
11. Yeah.
Teaser. So, like, that was kind of what we're in. We got about 5 minutes left. I want to talk about when you're in that moment, because obviously, like you said it this week, it's easier to catch that right away. Like, if you start to experience some feedback, blowback, and go, oh, I'm becoming a little bit bitter, I'm a little bit broken, it's way easier to deal with that in the moment than to have to trek back over 5-6 years.
Yeah.
So what are some tips you guys have, or what do you think is key in that moment where I start to go, wait a minute, am I, and you start to get a little bit of sense of that. What are some good things that people should be doing, should be looking at, to say, hey, listen, I can sense that I'm becoming embittered by this. I can sense that I feel broken. I'm not in a good place. I want to get to a better place. What do I do today to start to turn that around?
Yeah. So, and I'll throw the first one out, and then you can jump in. But here's what I've noticed for myself and other people. It's when you begin to look at people who like internally, because your relationship, that what they're doing is a sin. It's wrong. It's like, it. But you're attracted to that. You're drawn to that because it seems like they're happy. When that becomes your motivate, like, well, look at them, and then you're going down that wrong path. Okay, You might not be in a place of brokenness, bitterness, or barrenness yet, but you've started down that path. When you start looking at people who I know that they're doing wrong. I know that that's sin. They're smoking weed. They're doing whatever it is. They seem happy.
Yeah.
Check yourself, right? And it's like, oh, I
Right.
got to stop. And I need to do some evaluation because this is going to end badly.
Yeah. What do you think, Jake?
You need stop and praise Jesus, not just for the things in your life, because that can sometimes get twisted, and and you'll somehow warp yourself around into discontentment because you'll be like, thank you for my house, even though it's not as big as that guy's house, No, stop, praise Jesus for the things of eternity.
Yeah.
If you are in a place of gratitude for eternal things, it will make those things that are starting to drag you into bitterness and brokenness, it will remind you that they're hevel. It will remind you that they don't have the weight that you're giving them. When you refocus on what the cross, what grace, what this actually means in the life of a sinner.
Yeah.
It's kind of re-engaging with that wonder moment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, and I just heard someone say recently, and I'll probably botch the way they said it, but they said something like, "I have seen too much of God to stop now." Like, so I've experienced too much of God. I've seen too much of God. I've witnessed too much to quit and to give up on that to pursue something else.
Is that the song Too Good to Not Believe? It's a really good song. Sorry.
No, it
Okay.
wasn't. It was
All right,
just
no,
in
there's a-
conversation, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll check that out. But
Yeah,
no, it
no,
was-
that's
Well, and there's some great things where it's like, I always feel like it's that verse where it talks about capturing your thoughts and mind
Yes.
renewal. And it's like that moment of how do you, Craig Rochelle has a great series on that about how to frisk, the thoughts
Yeah.
that are going through your mind. On Right Now Media, shout out to Right Now Media if you want one of those.
This portion of the
Brought to you
broadcast
by-
brought to you by Right Now Media.
Jenny
Get your
Allen.
media right now.
Jenny Allen has a great series on that she talks about thought spirals.
Yeah.
Where you're starting to spiral out of control in your thoughts, and to be able to stop yourself and go, well, hold on one second, and then really like examine of going, is this a thought that Jesus would be proud of? Is this a thought that is truth, or is it a thought that I'm convincing myself of?
Right.
And being able to back that up and go,
Yep.
if I really think that this thought is not true, then like you have to make that logical leap of going, well, I think that the devil's trying to lie to me. Okay, well then the opposite like is probably, like, or go to
Yep.
somebody that you trust and go, hey, I think that this is a lie that Satan's talking to me. What do you think is the truth? And they go, well, let's go to scripture and let's find it. And then you got to, whether you feel it or not,
Yep.
you have to start making your mind disciplined to
Yep.
that is the truth. It doesn't
And then you
matter
just
how you
begin to focus on, again, the wonder of God, how incredible He is, and that I don't fully comprehend everything about Him, but I still trust Him.
because he's huge and wonderful. All right. Well, that's great. Stay tuned for a 7-minute story. We'll see you back here next week on the 167. Have a great week. Hey, welcome back to 7-Minute Stories. I'm here with my friends Curtis and Meredith Hall. We're matchies tonight. Matchies. Wearing the swag. All right. So tonight you guys are going to tell me your 7-minute story. So we're just going to have a little bit of a conversation. Mostly I'm just going to let you guys talk and tell the story. So who wants to go first?
Meredith, you want to start off?
Sure.
Paper, rock, scissors? Oh, okay.
I'll win.
All right, Meredith, take it away.
Okay. So we are here to talk a little bit about our healing that we recently have experienced. So when our oldest daughter was about 2.5, we started realizing that she was having some health problems, some pretty significant problems. She quit growing. She didn't get any taller, and she didn't gain any weight for about 11 months. And went to a series of doctors, and those doctors were not very nice. Some of them were just thought I was crazy. Like, oh, she's fine. She'll start growing. It's because you're not letting her eat what she wants, those sorts of things.
And it was because she was only eating probably one meal a week, I think, is
Yeah.
what she was averaging.
She refused food pretty regularly, and we couldn't really figure out why. And so we finally ended up finding a doctor that would run some tests. I kind of got extreme, which, you know that a mother who is determined to find a solution for her child is pretty determined. And I started just journaling everything she was eating, every time she would eliminate everything. And so we took that to her doctor, this new doctor, who looked at us and said, well, looked at you because you were, Curtis
Yeah.
took her because I was not able to attend that first appointment because I had started a new job. And she just said, basically, well, these are the tests that I recommend. What else do you want? And so through that process, we ended up finding out that there was a possibility that she might be allergic to gluten. And we needed to go ahead and eliminate that from her diet and see if that would help. So she hadn't, like I said, she hadn't gotten any taller and she hadn't gained any weight for months and months. And we took her off of gluten and she grew inches and gained pounds within a few short weeks.
Yeah, I would say within a month she was showing improvement and things like that. And I think through that, we started looking at some of the symptoms that you were having, and so you went off gluten as well, and then a lot of those issues resolved themselves for you, and we found that out. So
Yeah. So that's when we became a completely gluten-free family. And Curtis was super supportive and just said, if two of us are gluten-free, then all four of us are going to be gluten-free.
I
And
think Josie as well had some issues
she
too.
had some tummy issues, but she was pretty little
Yeah.
at that time. So we lived a gluten-free lifestyle for a really long time and just knew that it was celiac. She ended up getting officially diagnosed as celiac, and I was diagnosed with celiac disease, which is a hereditary disease. It's not something that just goes away. You don't grow out of it. It's not like, I think a lot of food allergies that are diagnosed, doctors will tell you, there's a possibility they could grow out of it. Or I know sometimes with peanut allergies, they can do certain things where they can reintroduce it slowly, and that allergy will go away. Celiac is not like that. It's a disease that stays with you for life, and if it goes unchecked, it can create really big problems.
And I think on top of that, several years before even the celiac, we found out that you were allergic to cocoa
Yeah.
as well. And so to the point where if cocoa was in the house, any chocolate, Meredith would break out, have hives, have allergic reactions to that. So we had eliminated that as well.
No chocolate? That's like a special kind of hell.
Well, and I think everyone can agree who was in our life group that trying to provide snacks for life group between our allergies and a couple other allergies that were present, we realized that no one could eat anything. And so we had water.
I was in your life group, and I did realize that very quickly. I was like, here's a vegetable tray, bon appetit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we were very healthy in that regards. It wasn't, the conversation was more fun than the snacks, I guess. So,
I mean, that's really how it should be a life group, but snacks are important.
So this went on for probably, it sounds like 9-10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
because Emmeline was about 2.5 and she's,
She'll be 12.
she'll
this
be 12
summer.
this year. Yeah.
Yeah. So, so this was something, like I said, that we medically, she needed to be off of gluten. If she ever ate gluten or dairy, she would get really, really sick, sometimes to the point of needing to go to the emergency room. And same for me. Luckily I never had to go to the emergency room, but even like taking communion here at church, I'd be sick for 2 or 3 days, just not feeling well. And so we just miserably did not eat gluten for a really long time.
Well, I think, one of the things that part of the struggle too was the fact that our grocery bill went from, I think, about $400 to about $1,000 a month, just trying to provide for the gluten allergy, which if anyone's experienced trying to switch to that or purchase things that were gluten-free, you get a box about this big and it's like $6 for pancakes. It does one meal. And, you know, like every time we went to the store, it was like $100 just.
Yeah. Just for
For-
incidentals.
Yeah, I think we spent just on flour alone was $40 or $50 a month just for flour,
Yeah.
for like tapioca flour or
Right. Just the different kinds of flours
Yeah.
or whatever, because it's difficult to do any sort of baking. But
and the taste. There's no taste.
there's no
it ta-
comparison.
So like this table tastes like gluten-free.
There's probably gluten in this table.
You know, it's got a nice grainy texture, which is about like what?
Perfect.
Yeah, it tastes like
Yeah.
boards.
Yeah. So anyway, life was just going on, and we were doing our gluten-free lifestyle, and just had kind of accepted anytime we fill something out or send her to a birthday party or whatever, you know, oh, she has celiac disease. This is her celiac disease, or I have celiac disease. And really, we just like claimed it as an identity. And over the course of some years, we decided, you know what, we would really like it if this wasn't our reality. Like, we would really like it if that wasn't our reality. And growing in our faith, we wanted healing. Were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say, you know, through that, as we continue to explore with some of the things that that wonderful pastor Motley guy showed us, and you know, some of the other scripture things that we've been exploring, I felt like God was going to heal Meredith of everything, and we had prayer previously, and I don't know what I was expecting to happen. I was expecting like the heavens to open up, angels to sing.
That didn't happen for you?
No.
Surprisingly,
darn it.
no, and I didn't believe when they prayed over us the first time, or we had prayer the first time, and I don't know about you, but I think it was kind of the same
Yeah.
thing. Like I didn't know wasn't sure what I was expecting to happen, but the more we continued to learn, I felt like God wanted us to be healed of that. And so at one point I prayed over Meredith for healing of Coco and stuff like that. And then she was able to eat chocolate and things like that. And then we just continued on this process.
Yeah. Well, and to kind of go back, kind of loop back a little bit, when we previously were prayed for, that was before we moved to Gardner. I don't think any of us really fully had faith that the Lord, like I think we believed that he could heal us, but maybe didn't fully believe that he would, you know?
Yeah. Sometimes you go and you ask for prayer and you're not even really sure what's happening. Like you don't even know what to ask for and
Right.
and what you can ask for.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's absolutely valid. Is like, can we ask for this? Should we expect that to really happen? And I think that there was just so much doubt as far as, okay, well, we got prayed for, but maybe we shouldn't try eating gluten today, you know? Like,
Yeah.
there just wasn't that confident hope in it.
It's like
you
that.
know?
I'm allergic to nuts. I got prayed for. Here's a peanut.
Right, like,
Oh no.
Well, and I think
Yeah.
part of it too is, I grew up in the church, but the church that I grew up in, miracles never happened. And we never saw that movement of God. We always talked about it. It was always preached about, but we never saw a practical application of that carried out in a way that was real. And I think our friend Harv from Ottawa was one of the first ones that kind of really introduced that to us. But I didn't have a faith that would allow that to happen, I guess, at that point.
And just growing.
And, so when we started on these new things, it was like, no, this really is amazing. And we started in this, this study of like, I want to see the miracles of God. I read about them and I really want to see that happening.
Yeah.
And you want to talk about anything up to that
Well, I
point?
didn't want to interrupt you.
Well, I could tell you had something to say, so I'm going to let you talk
You
too.
did. Thank you. That's kind.
Okay.
This is really off topic, but that just made me think of that cartoon with the chipmunks where they're like, no, you go first. Random. Anyway, that's my brain, everyone. But no, I was going to say, I definitely agree with that. I think that we just have been growing and, like he said, really wanting to see that. And I think as we have grown, really learning like what can a really like a dangerous prayer life look like what, like you said, what can I ask for and expect to receive. And he did pray for me this summer over my cocoa allergy, and I've been eating chocolate for probably about 10 months and not had any issues. And so
And has it been amazing?
it's been everything I hoped it would be.
And
Yes,
more.
It has.
But it wasn't just you. You said your girls also had an experience as well, right?
Yeah. So this winter we had attended a service where a little girl who is 5 years old in our congregation got baptized, and part of her testimony was receiving healing from her mast cell disease. And that was really the moment for me that inspired me to say, you know what, if this 5-year-old little girl can believe wholeheartedly that Jesus is going to heal her, and part of her testimony literally was, I couldn't eat any of my favorite foods, and then my mom prayed for me, and now I can't. So it was like this light bulb moment of like, if this little girl can ask that of God and he will give it to her, why would he not do that for my family? Why would he not do that for my children? And it was a little bit nerve-wracking at first because like we said, we had Emmeline prayed over previously, and we ate gluten, and then she ended up in the emergency room. So it was a little bit scary. Like, okay, I want this, I see it, I believe that it can take place, but really like taking that step out in faith.
Well, I would say yes. And then we scheduled it for February 27th.
Yeah.
And we told the girls, this is the day that you're going to get healed. And I think Meredith had them sit down, and they started making lists of all the foods that they were going to eat once they got healed. And so I don't know where all the lists went, but the girl, you saw the lists, and
Yeah, it was
you know,
long. It was every food you can ever imagine. Well, and Emmeline, our 11-year-old, her first response, I didn't even say we're going to get healed. I said we're going to get prayed for over our celiac disease. And Emmeline immediately said, Jesus is going to heal me on February 27th? And then she started making this list. So it was like, okay, the faith is in the room this time. Her faith is building my faith. And it was just really beautiful to see that, like heading into that.
there was faith in donuts. There was faith in
Yes.
the donuts. They wanted the donuts. And you know, so we led up to that date, and I was actually working that day, so I had to take half a day off. And so I was driving back to town to come to the prayer meeting. It was Sunday at, was it 2 or 1 o'clock? And on the way back in the car, I was just praying, and, you know, God told me that, you know, they were going to be healed that day. And, you know, I showed up, we prayed over a whole lot of things. I was expecting, you know, to come in and to pray, you know, for just one thing, and we were going to be done. And then they turned around and they looked at both Meredith and I, and they said, well, you know, we're going to talk about this, and all these other things. And then that was, the healing was like the last, you know, an hour and a half later, that was the last thing. That was the last thing we did.
Well, and there was, I remember this happened because we had left Hostess cupcakes in our office, right? Was that it was?
No, it was the donuts from the service that didn't get eaten, and so they were like laying on the table next to the sofa where they were sitting, because it was in the pastor's office, or
in the shared office.
And I think they had eyeballed them a couple of times, like they saw they were there, and so like they prayed over us at that point, and you know, and again, it was the same thing as last time. There was no magical, like,
the heavens didn't
open up, the skies didn't part or anything like that. But I immediately reached over and I grabbed those donuts and I threw them at the girls and I said, eat, you know, go forth and eat, you know, and they scarfed in them about 2.5 seconds, I think.
Yeah.
And
I'm pretty sure they didn't even chew them.
yeah,
They
it
just-
was swallowed them
just
like
inhaled
pills.
those donuts.
Donut
and-
pills. It's genius.
And that night was the transit party, I think, at Urban Air.
Yeah.
And so we had that experience. We went home. Did we eat lunch then or not? I don't
It doesn't
remember.
matter. Yeah.
And then we went out that night, and then at Urban Air, they ate pizza that contained all of the gluten and all of the yumminess
And the
all
cheese
of,
and the-
and everything, because it wasn't just gluten for us. It was also dairy. It was also, all these other things.
Preservatives
Yeah, all
and-
these other
yeah.
things. And so they chowed down on that, and nothing. They scarfed it like it was going out of business. And I think Josie was hiding pizza in her shirt. She was going to bring it home just in case. I don't know. And so, we came home. There were no issues that night. And I believe you made something that I don't remember what you made, but
I
it
don't
had
remember.
gluten in it
It was
too.
delicious, whatever it was. I remember that.
Yeah.
So you guys just been eating whatever you want. They've been eating whatever they want
Well,
within reason.
mostly.
Yeah.
So that first day, so Sunday, I didn't have any trouble, but then Monday, I started having a pretty significant stomach ache and a little bit of doubt. And I told him, it was right at dinner time, and I said, I have to go lay down. Like, I do not feel well. I'm going to be very ill. And so I went and laid down, and he came upstairs a few minutes later and laid his hands on me and prayed. And I haven't had any trouble since then.
So we've enjoyed the wonderful fruits of labor, from Debbie and Hostess
Little Debbie.
and Keebler, those little guys. They're wonderful.
Welcome to the wonderful world of junk food.
And it's just been one of those things where, through this season of life that we've been going through, I've been praying for provision, and that this is one of the ways that God has provided for us, because our, just the way that, the amount of money we're saving now from not having to buy into those gluten-free things is amazing.
Yeah.
So.
Well, praise God, man. That's awesome. So happy for you guys. I love to see when people get their healing and when Jesus moves in your life. So thanks for coming on and sharing.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having us.
We'll see you guys next time on 7-Minute Stories. If you enjoyed this episode of the 167, make sure you like, subscribe, follow, get notified, leave a 5-star rating and a positive review. Tell all your friends to listen as well. Make sure you go over to newlifegardener.com and check out all that we have to offer as a church, and check out our messages online as well. Thanks for listening.